Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hey, so welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We had a kind of open start there. Hi. You got to turn it up, you said. It's confusing. That's okay. Anyway, welcome to Cannabis Common Sense. We're back with another great show for you tonight. Right next to me is Mr. Alec Llewellyn, ready to take your phone calls, talk about medical marijuana. Over in the wings, Mr. John Cornett, who's celebrating his birthday. Happy birthday tonight, John. Tonight's the night.
It's another night.
My wife has prepared an infused pineapple upside down cake for you following this show. For those of you who eat those kind of things. That's off my diet these days. I won't share in that. But you can. We have a long newscast for you tonight, some film clips with Jorge Cervantes and more, so stay tuned as we bring on the infamous Dancing Cannabis Leaves.
I feel the force.
First story tonight is from the smallest state in the United States. It's a little smaller than the big island of Hawaii, and that is Rhode Island. It's not really an island, but it has a lot of islands in it. Voters in the nation's smallest state could have a chance to send a big signal about marijuana legalization this fall under a new bill filled in by the State House of Representatives on Wednesday. Rhode Islanders would be able to decide on a ballot measure calling for the end of cannabis prohibition. The proposed ballot title is, quote, "Do you support the legalization of possession and use of marijuana by persons who are at least 21 years of age, subject to regulation and taxation that's similar to the regulation and taxation of tobacco and alcohol," end quote. The proposal, filed by Representative Scott Slater, a Democrat there in Rhode Island, would not automatically result in legalization if a majority of the voters approve the question on Election Day, November 2018. Rhode Island law allows only for non-binding advisory statutory referendums, but a solid yes vote would likely spur lawmakers into more seriously considering cannabis legislation when they convene for the 2019 session. Lawmakers in at least 8 other states are considering bills to refer marijuana questions to the voters. The Illinois Senate, for example, approved legislation on Thursday to place a non-binding marijuana legalization query on the November ballot there throughout the state of Lincoln. That question would read, quote, "Shall the state of Illinois legalize the cultivation, manufacture, distribution, testing, and sale of marijuana and marijuana products for recreational use by adults 21 and older, subject to state regulation, taxation, and local ordinance," end quote. Separately, officials in Illinois' most populous county decided to place a similar cannabis question before voters this month's primary election, which several candidates for governor and attorney general are campaigning on legalization there in Cook County, Chicago. In some cases, activists can collect signatures to place questions on the ballot, but in others, only lawmakers can refer questions to voters. Aside from possible legislatively referred referendums in Rhode Island and other states, it's expected that 4 or more states will see binding marijuana questions initiated by voters appearing on the ballot this year. Oklahoma voters, Oklahoma to me is a very scary place for cannabis currently. You can get 99 years there for a few joints. But Oklahoma voters, for example, will decide on a medical cannabis measure during the state's June 26 primary. Activists in Michigan are expected to qualify a full marijuana legalization measure for the November 6 general election this year, and voters in Utah and Missouri are likely to see citizen-initiated medical marijuana questions when they go to the polls that day. In Rhode Island, Governor Gina Raimondo, a Democrat, is not opposed to legalization, but wants lawmakers to carefully consider its implementation before moving ahead. In 2016, she said she's open to giving voters a chance to weigh in on the issue through a referendum. After House Speaker Nicholas Matallo, a Democrat there in Rhode Island, said he was, quote, considering the possibility of placing a non-binding referendum question on the ballot regarding the use of recreational marijuana, end quote. No such referendum proposal was introduced during that session back in 2016. However, advocates pushed for lawmakers to simply pass legislation legalizing cannabis. House and Senate committees held hearings on those proposals but did not take any votes, and the bills died. Slater's new referendum proposal has been referred to the House Judiciary Committee, where it will presumably receive a hearing followed by a possible vote before being sent to the floor and then to the Rhode Island Senate for approval. Approval for legalization by the voters at the ballot box this November would give a huge boost to efforts to pass legislation to end cannabis prohibition through the legislative process in the state capitol in 2019 there in Rhode Island. Regional developments also add to the pressure to change Rhode Island's marijuana laws. Neighboring Massachusetts is set to begin legal cannabis sales this summer, in line with the ballot initiative approved by voters there in 2016. Next door, Connecticut lawmakers are also considering legalization. On Thursday, the General Assembly's Appropriations Committee filed a bill that would direct Rhode Island state officials to develop a plan to legalize and regulate the retail sale of marijuana. Meanwhile, legalization advocates are pushing Rhode Island lawmakers to pass a bill ending prohibition without having to refer the question to the voters. While we're confident that a referendum would be approved by Rhode Island voters, we once again call upon Rhode Island's General Assembly to pass legislation this year that legalizes marijuana possession for adults and begin the process of establishing a system for regulating and taxing the sale of marijuana. The longer Rhode Island waits, the more tax revenue goes to Massachusetts. Maintaining prohibition in Rhode Island will do nothing to limit the availability of marijuana to its residents other than increasing the amount of time it takes to drive to a legal dispensary in Massachusetts. Our next story tonight is from New York City. A federal district court judge in Manhattan on Monday granted the government's motion to dismiss a lawsuit that sought to challenge the constitutionality of cannabis prohibited status under federal law. Federal presiding judge Alvin Hellerstein opined in a 20-page ruling that the plaintiffs lacked, quote, fundamental right, end quote, to use cannabis as a medicine, and that they had failed to exhaust all potential administrative remedies available prior to challenging the constitutionality of the federal law in court. The judge wrote, quote, judicial economy is not served through a collateral proceeding of this kind that seeks to undercut the regulatory machinery on the executive branch and the process of judicial review in the Court of Appeals, end quote, he ruled. With regard to the question of whether the plaintiffs legitimately benefited from cannabis therapy, the judge argued that the merits of this claim were beyond the scope of the court. Judge Hellerstein wrote, quote, plaintiff's amended complaint, which I must accept as true for the purposes of this motion, claims that the use of medical marijuana has quite literally saved their lives. I highlight plaintiffs' experience to emphasize that this decision should not be understood as a factual finding that marijuana lacks any medicinal use in the United States, for the authority to make that determination is vested in the administrative process. Even if marijuana has current medical uses, I cannot say that Congress acted irrationally in placing marijuana in Schedule 1, end quote. Lawyers for the plaintiffs in the case have said they plan to appeal the ruling. Text of Judge Hellerstein's ruling is available online. Also out of New York City, the co-administration of inhaled cannabis and subtherapeutic doses of OxyContin produces enhanced analgesic effects in human subjects, according to clinical data published in the journal Neuropsychopharmacology. A team of investigators from the United States and Australia assessed the efficacy of inhaled cannabis and low doses of oxycodone on experimentally induced pain in a double-blind, placebo-controlled model. The researchers assessed subjects' pain tolerance after receiving both substances separately or in concert with one another. While neither the administration of cannabis nor oxycodone alone significantly mitigated the subject's pain, the combined administration of both drugs did so effectively. The authors determined, quote, both active cannabis and a low dose of oxycodone, 2.5 milligrams, were subtherapeutic, failing to elicit analgesia on their own. However, when administered together, pain responses were significantly reduced, pointing to an opioid-sparing effect in cannabis. The authors concluded, quote, "Smoked cannabis combined with an ineffective analgesic dose of oxycodone produced analgesia comparable to an effective opioid analgesic dose without significantly increasing cannabis's abuse liability," end quote. The findings are similar to those of a 2011 clinical trial determining that vaporized cannabis interacts synergistically with opioids in induced pain relief and therefore, quote, "may allow for opioid treatment at lower doses with fewer side effects," end quote. In jurisdictions where marijuana is legally available, patients frequently acknowledge reducing their use of conventional medications, particularly opioids, benzodiazepines, after engaging in cannabis therapy. This study, the impact of co-administration of oxycodone and smoked cannabis on analgesia and abuse liability, appears in this month's edition of Neuropsychopharmacology. Also out of New York City, the enactment of state-wide laws regulating the use and distribution of cannabis for medical purposes is not associated with increased marijuana use among young people, according to a review of relevant studies published in print in the journal Addiction. The investigators from Columbia University, the RAND Corporation, the University of California at Davis, and Boston School of Public Health reviewed 11 studies developed from 4 ongoing national surveys. The studies were published between the years 1991 and 2014. None of the studies identified any significant changes in youth use patterns that could be attributable to changes in marijuana's legal status. The authors concluded, quote, "all estimates of pre-post changes in past month marijuana use within medical marijuana law states from these studies were non-significant. In summary, current evidence does not support the hypothesis that passage of medical marijuana laws is associated with an increased marijuana use prevalence among adolescents in states that have passed such laws," end quote. One of the study's senior authors, Dr. Deborah Hassan, further stated in an accompanying press release, quote, "for now there appears to be no basis for the argument that legalizing medical marijuana has increased teen use of the drug," end quote. The findings are consistent with those of numerous prior studies, including a federally funded 2015 study published in the journal Lancet Psychiatry that assessed marijuana use patterns of over 1 million adolescents in 48 states. That paper concluded, quote, "concerns that increased marijuana use is an unintended effect of state marijuana law seems unfounded," end quote. Separate studies report that teens' use of marijuana and access to cannabis have declined significantly over the better part of the past 2 decades, during the same time that the majority of states enacted medical marijuana access programs. Data from states that regulate the adult use and sale of cannabis similarly fail to report any associated uptick in either youth use or marijuana access. The study, Marijuana Laws and Adolescent Marijuana Use in the United States, a systemic review and meta-analysis, appears in this month's edition of Addiction. Our next story is from Philadelphia. Newly elected District Attorney Larry Krasner of Philadelphia has announced that his office will no longer prosecute marijuana possession offenses or violations. Although city policy has already decriminalized most minor marijuana possession offenses, police have continued to make several hundred possession arrests annually. Going forward, the DA's office will drop these charges. Krasner said that the policy is the right thing to do. His action comes days after Seattle city officials announced their intentions to vacate criminal convictions of minor marijuana possession offenders over the past 2 decades. In recent days, city officials in both San Francisco and in Alameda County, California, have also announced plans to automatically reduce or expunge thousands of past marijuana convictions. Down in San Diego, California, county officials in recent weeks have either reduced or vacated the convictions of several hundred past cannabis offenders. Their actions are similar to those recently announced by the district attorneys of San Francisco and Alameda County, as reported in the previous story. So our next story tonight is from Ottawa, Canada. The retailers there will be unable to begin legally selling marijuana products to adult consumers until late summer or early fall, according to Canadian news reports. Lawmakers had initially sought to begin regulating the adult use of marijuana market by July 1st in Canada. In November, members of the House of Commons voted 200 to 82 in favor of Bill C-45, the Cannabis Act, which amends the Canadian Federal Drugs Control Law and Substance Act so that those over the age of 18 may legally possess, purchase, and grow personal use quantities of cannabis. It also establishes rules and regulations governing the commercial production of retail cannabis products. Members of the Senate are now set to vote on the measure on June 7th. If passed, retail sales would be expected to begin within 8 to 12 weeks afterward. And out of Seattle, cannabis use in patients with HIV is associated with reduced inflammation and immunological benefits, according to clinical data published in the journal Clinical Infectious Diseases. Investigators from the University of Washington in Seattle and the University of California in San Francisco assessed the impact of cannabis use on immune cell frequency activation and function in 198 HIV-infected patients. The authors reported, quote, "We found that heavy cannabis use in HIV-infected individuals was associated with lower frequencies of activated CD4 and CD8 T cells compared to the frequencies of these cells in non-cannabis using individuals. This novel finding is important given that elevated levels of T cell activation have been associated with lower CD4 T cell gains following antiretroviral therapy and will lower mortality in this population." They concluded, quote, "Our work suggests that cannabinoids may have an immunological benefit in the context of HIV infection, as lowering the frequency of activated T cells could limit the risk of development of non-AIDS associated comorbidities," end quote. The text of this study, cannabis use associated with reductions in activated inflammatory immune cell frequencies in antiretroviral therapy treated human immunodeficiency infected individuals, appears in Clinical Infectious Diseases. Additional studies are also available online on that. Our last story tonight is from Nashville, Tennessee. Cannabidiol administration is associated with a significant reduction in seizure frequency in patients with drug-resistant pediatric epilepsy, according to data published in the journal Epilepsy and Behavior. Vanderbilt University researchers retrospectively assessed the impact of the adjunctive use of gray market CBD products in a cohort of 108 children with refractory epilepsy. The authors reported, quote, "The addition of CBD resulted in 39% of the patients having a greater than 50% reduction in seizures, with 10% becoming seizure-free. No patients achieved CBD monotherapy, although the weaning of other anti-epileptic drugs became possible in 22% of the patients. Increased alertness and improved verbal interactions were reported in 14% of the patients in the CBD group." The authors concluded, quote, "These data add additional support for the use of artisanal CBD in the treatment of drug-resistant epilepsy. Outside of seizure control, CBD use was also associated with increased alertness, improved verbal communication, better social interactions, and better mood, suggesting additional benefits to the use of CBD. In summary, these findings support efficacy of artisanal CBD preparations in seizure reduction with few significant side effects," end quote. Phase 3 clinical trials have previously demonstrated the safety and efficacy of standardized herbal CBD extracts in pediatric patients with uncontrollable seizures. Later this year, regulators at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration will undertake a priority review of this data to determine whether to grant Epidiolex, a CBD drug from GW Pharmaceuticals, a British company, market approval. This study, Efficacy of Artisanal Preparations of Cannabidiol for the Treatment of Epilepsy, Practical Experience of Tertiary Medical Centers, it appears in Epilepsy and Behavior. And that is the end of our Hemp News segment. Mr. John Cornett is standing by. John, you've had some experience with seizures and CBD, haven't you?
Yes, sir, Paul. That is one of my specialties, and I wish that it were not. And thank God today that OHSU, that would be Oregon Health and Sciences University, are working with me. They are prescribing my Oxtellar, which is a very, very, very mind-numbing medication that I should not even be up here performing right now. But the reason I can be up here performing is because I'm also taking high CBD oil, which I grew. It's called Harlequin strain, and it's very high CBD, and I take a good bit of that. And if I don't, I have these really nasty grand mal seizures. So I say one more time, thank you, God, and thank you, Paul, and all your gang, guys. You know, I owe you my life, and that's all I got to say about that. This is, I think, the second song I wrote in my life when I was a kid, about 21 or 22. I might not remember the lyrics, but I'm going to give it a try. So we say we sympathize, though we may apologize for the poor, for the lost, the lonesome, and the fool. Forgiving all the greedy deeds, what the world really needs. Teach compassion to the children in the school. And heaven help you and me. God help the refugee. Help our blinded eyes to see. Grand opportunity we have to live in peace and harmony. Burdened with self-righteousness makes your life such a mess, never knowing if they really understood. Wrapped up in some philosophy, amazing when your eyes can see when the action that you're taking isn't good. Heaven help you and me. God help refugees. Help our blinded eyes to see the grand opportunity we have to live in peace and harmony. They choose. All the dirty stories seem to linger on. Then I see a single man professing love the best he can, knowing oh so well that soon we will be gone. Heaven help you and me. God help the refugees. Help the blinded eyes to see. Grand opportunity we have to live in peace and harmony.
Beautiful song, John.
I made it through.
You said that was the second song you wrote?
I wrote that back in, I think, 1978 or something.
And after all these years, you just played it on the show for the first time.
Yeah, that's right. Pretty much.
That's great. You got to pull some more gems like that out of your songbook. Hey, how you doing, Eric? Good to have you back. We were off last week as I went down and saw my mom and our friend Quiltman Sami from Warm Springs Indian Reservation had a benefit concert put on by Jackson Brown. There was a really great show. I was fortunate. It coincided with my mom's birthday, and I got to hang out at my mom's apartment, take a lot of walks on the beach.
Nice, nice. Bet your weather's nicer down there than up here.
Yeah, I missed the snowstorms here, I guess. I
Lucky
just
you.
lucked out.
Right?
So that's cool. So how have you been doing?
Doing good, you know. Staying strong, you know.
Good, good. We are taking your phone calls tonight. If you have any questions for Eric Llewellyn or myself, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. We had a pretty good guest a couple weeks ago with Jorge Cervantes in here.
That was nice, yes.
It was. I know you had been looking forward to seeing him.
Yeah. It's a great
So you got
experience.
to.
Great experience meeting him, yes.
He's a pretty nice guy.
Sitting down chatting with him, had a little smoke session afterwards.
Yeah. You know, we have this banner turned around because an Israeli-Canadian oil company by the name of Adira Energy, that's A-D-I-R-A, has attacked us in federal court, stolen a multi-million-dollar business from me and my associates just to basically close it down and crash it, just to stop our political work. There's more news stories coming out about this. I understand a lot more employees have been laid off over there, as though they raised millions of dollars from our successful multi-million-dollar grossing business. They seem to want to just crash it all, and they've sold everyone's medical records, over 250,000 American medical marijuana patients' medical records, and they just pocket all the money. If you'd like to find out more, or if you're looking for a doctor who can help you, we have a physician referral service. Just give us a call at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. It was pretty good the week before, Jorge. We had Dr. David Knox in here. You were on the camera that day, but you know, there's some interesting news about Dr. Knox. You know, he worked at our clinic until this Israeli-Canadian oil company came in and crashed it, and they've set up their own business. They're helping us, and but this week they had the folks from the Today Show, the NBC morning show, come up to their office and film some interactions with patients. And if you're interested in that, they'll be on the Today Show next Thursday. They're flying Dr. Knox and his wife and 2 daughters, all of whom are MDs, and they'll be featured on the Today Show next Thursday, so you can stay tuned for that. That's kind of cool.
It's pretty interesting, yeah.
It is. It's good to see
getting
him
the name out there.
go forward. But anyway, speaking of Jorge Cervantes before, we do have a video where Jorge is with Mike Marijuana, and I think we're ready to roll that video. So we'll be back right after the video. If you have a question. Oh.
Hi, this is Jorge Cervantes, and I'm here in Northern California at several different little, small, local greenhouses. And let's take a look at stuff here. I've got this little, it's early in the morning, and the sun just came up, and we're looking here at this greenhouse, or it was a greenhouse, now it's just all open. But this is all light depth right here, and it's sour diesel. Let's get in a little closer and take a look. My guess is this is somewhere between 5 and 7 days away from harvest. And you can see these buds are just really nice and plump. And I looked at them under a scope. I got to get back a little bit. I look at them under a microscope, and I saw just, it may appear green on the outside, but you take a look at that with a 60 power scope, and that looks white. There's nothing but white. My fingers are sticky just from barely touching it. So you can see that. I just barely, that's the first time I've touched it so far. But this little light depth, this is the 3rd crop in here. I got to keep everything pretty tight in here, so I don't want to show a few of the outside boundaries and whatnot. So you can see that this little greenhouse is just about ready to harvest. Let's take a look down here at the ground. We can see here's the irrigation here. Those are really quite good irrigation plugs in there, because they're hard to plug. And out here, when you're on well water, that's a real concern. See, there's a little bit of foliage growing here, or I mean, yeah, a little bit of foliage from other weeds and stuff. But this soil's been used over and over, and well, it drains real well. Here, let's take a look at it. See how that just falls apart? It's full of perlite. This one was harvested a little early. In fact, I saw that hanging, and it's great smoke. But look at this baby. It's really just glistening in the sun. And today we're right at the end of August 2017. So we've got a day. It's supposed to be 102 here, I think, today. So that's pretty darn hot. We're a few miles away from the coast, so it's going to be cooler here. Later I'm going to be shooting videos up on the hill, and that's where it starts to cook. But let's just take a look at some of these babies. They're looking pretty darn good. Now if we look at this structure, it's they used to tarp it, but now since we're at the end of August, these buds are a week or less from harvest, they don't tarp it anymore. That means throwing a tarp over it to give it 12 hours of uninterrupted darkness. Now if we look at the next greenhouse, well, we'll make another video of that one. But here we go. This just gives you an idea of what's going on. And I've got some other things to talk about pretty soon. So this is Jorge Cervantes signing off. We'll see you on the next video.
Welcome back. Always good to have informative video there from Jorge. So we are taking your phone calls tonight. If you have a question for us, you can give us a call at 503-288-4442. And I understand we do have a caller standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello, Paul.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
I can't hear you.
Oh.
Mic down, but
Yeah, it takes, there's a little delay on the television, so just listen through your phone and be careful, you might get feedback.
okay. I'm gonna not even look at the.
Yeah, it'll
wanted
confuse you,
to
it's
know
delayed.
What the guitar player said that he had a strain for the CBD, and I need to know if I can find some of it for me badly, because I usually get the same thing where I get it, and I want that. I need CBD instead of this really strong THC.
Yeah, it's hard to find. You know, actually, the price of CBD, the extract, is actually 10 times the price of THC. A milligram of THC costs a penny, and a milligram of CBD costs 10 cents.
I want to grow the plant. Or
Yeah, so that strain that John was talking about, Harlequin, is one of the best ones out there for CBD. There are a number of places to pick up clones or seeds.
just a minute, Harlequin.
Harlequin, like,
Like on socks and shirts.
yeah, it's used in a lot of different contexts.
Yeah, okay. And,
But look for Harlequin as a variety. That's one of the best CBD varieties out there.
and where do you think I could find some, and what would it cost? Do you know, or can you say?
You know, I can't say right now. You know, our cable system is non-commercial, so we can't actually refer you to commercial places to pick those up. But if you want more information, you can call our office at 503-235-4606. Call us. We'll call you back.
Will you?
We'll pop that number up on the screen. There it is. 503.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, just give us a call, leave a name. We'll call you back here by Monday, and at 503.
I've got a doctor's appointment Monday, so try more than one.
Okay, sounds good. Just call and leave a message anytime.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good luck. So, Eric, do you notice a difference between THC strains and CBD strains in your medical use? You know, I mainly just vaporize my cannabis, but I know you do dabs and you do edibles.
Big fan of the CBD, actually.
Uh-huh.
It is a,
How is it different?
you know, the THC, it gives you that mind buzz, as you would. The CBD gives you more of a body float, to where any of your heavy pains, your aches, tight muscles, those just start to relax away. You can also, with your CBD, if you, what they might say, go too much on the THC, smoke a little bit of the CBD, and it'll also bring your levels back down. So it's a nice balancer out for a lot.
So
of
if you get too high, a little bit of CBD will kind of fill in those receptors
and
without making you
a
high.
straight CBD has a very beautiful cherry taste in the background.
You know, I tried some straight CBD in a vaporizer down in Medellin, Colombia, about a year and a half ago, and had this anise or licorice flavor is what I saw in that pure crystal powder when vaporized. But I understand we have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi, Paul. I just wanted to thank you for teaching me how to make my medical pills to help with my chronic pain. Also, I want to thank John for his wonderful music.
That was a great song, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. But I do want to ask questions. So what's going on with Clay? Because I haven't heard. I mean, like I said, I guess I've been sick for a little while, so I'm curious what's happening with Clay down in El Salvador.
Okay, for our viewers who are not aware of what he's talking about, our friend Clay Pierce, who volunteered on this show for more than a decade in the control room and behind the camera, he was arrested while in transit going from a legal marijuana place to a legal medical marijuana place from Colombia to Oregon. And in transit, while he was in the airport, the El Salvador police went through his luggage and found 38 grams of marijuana and about 30 grams of extract. They pulled him out of the plane and charged him with international drug smuggling and put him in one of the worst prisons in the world, known as Mariana in El Salvador, where he languished for almost 3 months, where he was chronically ill. Finally, when he had a horrible infection, they let him out of jail, and he's been in the hospital for about a month now. We'll be in there at least 2 more weeks. He had a horrible infection caused by chronic diarrhea, and it caused perforation in his intestine that caused septic shock, and he lost a lot of tissue and went through a couple different surgeries for that infection, removing a lot of necrosis or dead tissue. So he's still in the hospital for at least a couple more weeks. I had some communication with him just this morning. He is available through Facebook if you want to talk to him through Facebook. But he also still has to go back to court about those original charges. Now, the court did get it dropped down from international drug smuggling, which in El Salvador would require at least 6 years in prison and up to 20 years, down to simple possession of the marijuana in his possession, which is a sentence of 2 to 3 years in the prison if he's found guilty of that. They're trying to push the medical aspect, even though that isn't legal there in El Salvador. You know, El Salvador has the highest murder rate, and the city of San Salvador, the capital of El Salvador, has the highest murder rate in the world by a significant fraction. There was 2 people on motor scooters that killed 23 people in shootouts in the street just last week in one incident. We hear about those 17 school kids, God bless them and rest their soul. But you know, things like that happen around the world. So, and that's a byproduct primarily of the U.S. war on drugs and the shipment of cocaine and other drugs from South America up to America. So it's an incredibly corrupt system, and so we need to legalize this. And Clay's been working on that. Clay is still there in prison. You can go to freeclay.org. That's a website, freeclay.org. His friend has set up a GoFundMe page for Clay. Of course, this has cost him everything. They've taken everything he has in this world. He's just a disabled elderly patient, and he'd gone there to help medical marijuana patients in indigenous peoples there in Colombia. So go to freeclay.org, and if you can help him financially, go to his GoFundMe page and make a contribution, because he definitely needs that. Anyway, thanks for asking that question. If you have a question for us.
Paul, you have a good evening. Thank you again. Goodbye.
Hey, all right. It's good to hear from you. So if you have a question for us, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. I know you had talked about Colorado and how Colorado's taxes have they've brought in a lot more revenue.
Yeah, they've in the 3 years they've been legal, they've surpassed the alcohol sales for cannabis sales. So they're making their way. They're knocking them alcoholics and them drinkers out, which is a good thing for us cannabis patients. That it shows that people are using it and they're needing it.
Yeah, that's a very good thing. I mean, and that probably means less road deaths and less drunken crimes. You know, I think half the people in prison, and most people are there for things they did on alcohol that most of them can't even remember doing.
They don't
when they
have
were
no
blacked
clue.
out or something.
They wake up the next morning, they're like, what?
No one is ever blacked out from cannabis use. So in its long recorded history. So again, if you have a question or comment for us, give us a call at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. Anything else on your agenda?
Going back to that CBD topic we were just on a little bit. Taking a look at the way cannabis is being grown for recreational purposes compared to how it is for medical purposes, there's also a huge difference in that also.
Yeah. I think most of the people growing it recreationally currently, it's not really very good quality.
No, they're just trying to push it out to get what they can. They're not taking their time.
It's driven the price down incredibly.
Right, and then but then you have those medical patients that are looking for real medicine, and they're getting shammed by this stuff that's not working as medicine. So I just want to say, if you're a medical patient, know where you're getting your medicine from. Don't go by any Johnny off the street that says it is what it is. Know what you're doing. That's the best advice I can give anybody out there.
Yeah, if you need help finding a doctor anywhere in this country, the United States, in case you didn't know, just give us a call at 503-235-4606. It's 503-235-4606, which is not the number on your screen right now. That's the number you should call if you want to ask us a question over the next 15 minutes or so. We got about 15 minutes at the top of the hour. You know, right here on the floor, I have a couple of things. I call this our show and tell. We have a hemp flame for freedom right here. This is hemp seed oil with a hemp wick. This is why marijuana is illegal. I always say it's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate, elite, fascist sons of a bitches who gave us marijuana prohibition so that we can't burn this stuff in our cars. And when we can regulate high THC cannabis without regard to its THC content, but with regard to the most productive varieties of seed and seed oil and protein, we will replace most petroleum burned on this planet. This is a little thing of hemp seed oil. This is hemp twine, and this is hempcrete. It's made from hemp stems that's been mixed with powdered limestone, and it makes a material that's lighter and stronger than concrete. There are a lot of ancient buildings that are built out of hempcrete going back thousands of years. And so it's a material of the past and will be a material more of the future. In fact, our friend Quiltman, who had that benefit concert with Jackson Browne last weekend, he's going to rebuild this house that burned down, which his grandfather built back in 1930s. It was the oldest house in use on the Warm Springs Indian Reservation. He's going to rebuild it using hempcrete in the walls and insulation. So, in fact, I'm happy to give him all the hemp stems and stalks I have to help build that. But I think it'll take a few more than I have.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. So we have another video. This one is an old video from 1943 that my friend, the late great Jack Herer, found in the Library of Congress back in the early 1990s. This is Hemp for Victory, a United States Department of Agriculture video. Let's run about 5 minutes of that. We'll be back shortly.
Hemp for fiber is ready to harvest when the pollen is shedding and the leaves are falling. In Kentucky, hemp harvest comes in August. Here, the old standby has been the self-rake reaper, which has been used for a generation or more. Hemp grows so luxuriantly in Kentucky that harvesting is sometimes difficult. which may account for the popularity of the self-rake with its lateral stroke. A modified rice binder has been used to some extent. This machine works well in average hemp. Recently, the improved hemp harvester, used for many years in Wisconsin, has been introduced in Kentucky. This machine spreads the hemp in a continuous swath. It is a far cry from this fast and efficient modern harvester to the Armstrong model of yore. But here's one kind of harvester, at least, that doesn't stall in the heaviest hemp. In Kentucky, hand cutting is practiced in opening fields for the machines. In Kentucky, hemp is shucked as soon as safe after cutting, to be spread out for retting later in the fall. In Wisconsin, hemp is harvested in September. Here, the hemp harvester with automatic spreader is standard equipment. Note how smoothly the rotating apron lays the swaths preparatory to retting. Here it is a common and essential practice to leave headlands around hemp fields. These strips may be planted to other crops, preferably small grain. Thus, the harvester has room to make its first round without preparatory hand cutting. Here the machine is running over corn stubble. When the cutter bar is much shorter than the hemp is tall, overlapping occurs. Not so good for retting. The standard cut is 8 to 9 feet. The length of time hemp is left on the ground to ret depends on the weather. The swaths must be turned to get a uniform ret. When the woody core breaks away readily, like this, the hemp is about ready to take up and bind into bundles. Well-retted hemp is light to dark gray. The fiber tends to pull away from the stalk. The presence of stalks in the bowstring stage indicates that retting is well underway. When hemp is short or tangled, or when the ground is too wet for machines, it is bound by hand. A wooden buck is used. Twine will do for tying, but the hemp itself makes a good band. When conditions are favorable, the pickup binder is commonly used. The swaths should lie smooth and even with stalks parallel. The picker won't work well in tangled hemp. After binding, hemp is shucked as soon as possible to stop further retting. In 1942, 14,000 acres of fiber hemp were harvested in the United States. The goal for 1943 is 300,000 acres. Thus, hemp, Cannabis sativa, the old standby cordage fiber, is staging a strong comeback. This is Kentucky hemp going into the dryer of a mill at Versailles. In the old days, breaking was done by hand, one of the hardest jobs known to man.
Okay, that's the 1943 United States Department of Agriculture video, Hemp for Victory. You can watch that whole thing out there if you haven't watched it already. We like to play it periodically. So we do have a big march coming up here in May, the Global Marijuana March, which happens in about 250 cities all across America. You can find out more about that by calling our office at 503-235-4606. There's that number. That's the Global Cannabis March. It'll be down at Pioneer Courthouse Square in downtown Portland. It's an event out there on Facebook. It's the first week of March. I think it's March 6th this year.
It's going to be big.
It's going to be big.
Big.
So come on down and help march for cannabis, global cannabis freedom with us. There are going to be concerts. There's going to actually be, for the first time to our knowledge here in the state of Oregon, a designated smoking area for adults only. So we're pioneering that breakthrough with the help of the regulatory authorities in Pioneer Courthouse Square. So look that up. I think we've got a poster for that we'll be showing here in just a minute. I'm sure it'll pop up. So Mr. John Cornett is standing by, just about ready to play some music. It's your birthday, John.
Yeah, it is. That's what I heard. I keep hearing that. But, you know, it's just another day to me, brother. You know, I swear.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel very lucky to be alive 63 when I didn't think I'd make it past 40. So, you know, it's one of those things. It's like, wow, I'm still here, man. Whoa.
All right. Well, we're glad to have you here.
That's great. Thank you.
So again, if you are a loved one, are looking for help finding a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana permit, we have a referral service, and you can call us to find out doctors all over the United States. Just call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. And I implore you, do not go to Empower Healthcare. Empower Healthcare was taken over by an Israeli Canadian oil company, a bunch of capitalist liars who bamboozled us and stole everything without paying a penny for it. Don't believe a word they say. And for information on finding other doctors, we're happy to help you. Call us at 503-235-4606. Just have to tell people that it's kind of an unbelievable story. A couple of stories appeared out there, one in the Huffington Post, another one in Ganjapreneur. And I think Salem News as well has also published a story and may be working on another one sometime in the near future. We'll see. So anything you want to say in closing, Eric?
I'll rehash on the fact. Rehash. If you're a medical patient, make sure you know where you're getting your flower from. Make sure there's no pesticides, no anything bad in them, and make sure it's quality meds. It's for your health. Other than that, thank you all for tuning in.
You know, we are streaming live on Facebook. You just go to facebook.com/restorehemp. You can watch our show streaming live there. It's also up on YouTube with hundreds of hours. Just look up Cannabis Common Sense on YouTube and you can watch the shows there. If you want to find out more about our organization, you can go to crrh.org. That's crrh.org. Or give us a call at that number there on your screen, 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Hey, there they both are together. So you ready to play some music? You carry us through the end. Well, happy birthday, John.
Thank you. Happy birthday to
Oh,
everybody.
there's the poster. There's the
one, too.
poster. May 5th, Saturday, May 5th. High noon to 5 p.m. The Oregon Cannabis Festival. So we hope to see you there. Find out more on the Facebook event page. And thanks again for watching. Tune in next week and help us restore hemp.
Like that.
Thank you very
John.
much, Charlie Lussman, for this beautiful song. He used to come to my studio and we were recording this stoned, you know, and I'd say, okay, you got to do what you got to do. And I didn't get it, but now I do. It goes like this. Turn on my amplifier. Did you know the sun will shine one day? Now everything on earth will melt away. All this oceans rise above the land. That's right. Drowning every woman, every man. Whoa, let's make the best of it now. Yeah. We'll be just another asteroid floating through the mind of Sigmund Freud. For so many years we've been up on this place. Who'd believe the future that we face? Whoa, let's make the best of it now. You never know when your time will pass. You've got to do just what you want to do. And if somebody tries to ruin your day, walk away. Did you notice that the world's so strange? Because our atmosphere's about to change. So many reasons why we kill the trees. Life is passing like a subtle breeze. Whoa, let's make the best of it now. Another chapter as we turn the page. We exist within a nuclear age. I know that freedom's heard around the globe. Just where our future lies, well, nobody knows. Whoa, let's make the best of it now. But you never know when the sky will fall. Maybe the moon will reach the earth one day. We're not the same race that we used to be. Can't you see? Now the next time that you fall in love, just appreciate the sun above. 'Cause the sun is shining on and on. So open up your eyes before it's gone. Whoa, let's make the best of it now. Whoa, let's make the best of it now.
All right. Two great songs here, John. Thank you.